game on Sunday, man. I know you're nervous for the Rams, but you got to be a little enthusiastic after being there.
Bro, that game atmosphere was ridiculous. The energy, the electricity. That place was rocking. Anyone was there, and a lot of the Super Bucs fans were there too. The Bucs.
Tampa Tones. We are joined by lead goon tonight, host of the Pat and Aaron show of WDAE, Pat Donovan. And it sounds like Stunna is bumbling a little bit. Going to put him on mute for a second until that gets a little cleared. But we're joined by Pat Donovan.
It looks like Stunna's hanging out with Cheech and Chong in a car with the windows up or something over there.
It does look like we got a little...
No, my camera's broke.
How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? Good morning. Welcome into the Buccaneers podcast. I'm your host, Tampa Tones here. We're going to be joined by Huncho at the top of the hour. Hunch will be joining us at 11 Eastern, 10 Central time. So looking forward to getting our great co-host thoughts on the game itself yesterday. And let me tell you, it was preseason week one. You can tell by a lot of factors, including sloppiness of play on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers side of the ball. You had some depth battles going on, which seemingly didn't go quite as planned. Some guys did stood out. Some guys took a seat last night. And then the quarterback battle, the much focus of attention right now around reporters, fans, and the team itself. The quarterback battle between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask did get underway last night. Both of the quarterbacks did get under center throughout the game. Trask actually played a little bit more than I thought he would. Baker actually looked a little bit more efficient and clean than I thought he would. There were a couple nice things out of both quarterbacks. One thing that I really liked out of Baker, which was really refreshing to see in my opinion, was mobility on quarterback, play actions, on QB sweeps, and those sorts of things. I thought it looked incredible when Baker Mayfield rolled out at times yesterday. And this isn't a knock on Tom Brady. This isn't anything against Tom Brady because he's the GOAT. He'll always be the best quarterback to always ever put on a Bucs uniform. But although we lost last night, there were some positives. And to me, one of those positives, although maybe a small one, but it was Baker Mayfield's mobility. It was his rollout ability. Nice being mobile. It looked good. And it wasn't only Baker Mayfield. I will say John Wolford and Kyle Trask both looked a little bit more mobile than the old quarterback room did as well. So Tom Brady, all the things he brought to the table, all the greatness he's brought to Tampa, the ring, the 2 division titles back-to-back, the 3 straight playoff appearances in a row. With all that being said, he was kind of a sit and duck back there at times. And what I mean by that is when teams would pressure Tom Brady, it would be easy to bring him down at the end, because if he wasn't getting rid of the ball, if he wasn't throwing the ball away, it was probably going to result in a sack, right? Brady, great quarterback, greatest of all time, but not the most fleet of foot out there. And he, especially last year when he missed preseason dates, when he missed a lot of important stuff, whether it was because his crypto business was tanking, his marriage with Giselle was on the line, and all those sorts of things. He just didn't look like Tom Brady last year, and that resulted in a lot of pressures, a lot of throws at feet. Yesterday's game, really refreshing to see Baker Mayfield, one of the first plays of the game, one of the first pass attempts of the game. It only went for 8 to 10 yards or so, but on a second down, rolls out, beautiful play action, rolls out, eludes pressure as well. He's able to shake some pressure. And then he completes a pass 8 to 10 yards downfield. Might not seem like a lot, but that is something that this Bucs offense hasn't been accustomed to the past year or two, especially, and really since Brady's gotten here. But really the past year or two, we haven't had that rollout ability. As my Nani joins us on Facebook. Thank you so much for tuning in. That is great this morning here on the Buccaneers live post-game show. Steelers Bucs preseason week one. We did ultimately lose 27-17. It was a hard-fought game by some Bucs. A lot of Bucs look sloppy out there, specifically the offensive line. We'll get more into that in a little bit. I thought they played horrendous. I thought the right side was terrible. I thought a couple of players on the right side, the draft pick last year, Luke Godecki, he looked overpowered out there. He was getting beat like a drum. But we'll get into the O-line a little bit later when Huncho joins us. Again, Huncho set to join us in about 15 minutes or so at the top of the hour to break down the game as well. I'm going to continue talking about my Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask quarterback comp to begin the show, though, because I think that is the most front and center thing. I think that's the most important thing for this Bucs team right now, and probably hinders the Bucs the most in terms of outcome this year, if they're going to be successful or not. So, yeah, to pick up where I left off, Mayfield looked really fleet of foot out there. He even scrambled for what seemed to be a first down, but then it got called back by a penalty, which shout out Stank Bastard to the Loose Cannons. Was a very vocalist of this on Twitter last night. But every time the Bucs had a big run, or seemingly had a big run, it was negated by a flag, a penalty, one of those yellow pieces of laundry that we always hate to see on the field. And that's what happened there as well. Baker Mayfield was scrambling around, running around. He ends up getting a first down, eludes a lot of pressure, actually dives out of bounds. And if it wasn't a first, it would have been very close to a first. And then a yellow flag comes out. So I guess my point in all of this is with Baker Mayfield, it was just refreshing to see a quarterback under center who's mobile out there, who's not afraid to take hits, who's willing to run, dive, get dirty, and try and earn every yard you can. I think that was really refreshing to see eluded pressure at times as well. Again, last year, nothing against Brady or this offensive line, but when the pressure caved in, it was seemingly over for Brady and the offensive line. It wasn't a lot of fight left in the tank, and the ball would either end up spiraling to the dirt, seemingly. Sorry, as I'm adjusting my camera here. The ball would either be spiraling to the dirt, seemingly, or it would be a sack for the opposing defense. I don't think we're going to get that as much this year with Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask, and even knock on wood, I don't think he's a bad third string, but even if John Wolford had to enter the game, I think we're going to get a real mobile quarterback, or at least an upgraded mobile quarterback at that. John Wolford, some of you were asking me, who is this guy? Where did he come from? Wolford was actually on the Rams for a while, so he was under the Sean McVay umbrella, and they really display a similar playbook to what offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay Dave Canales is bringing to the forefront. So a couple of reasons why we brought in John Wolford, more so than just a playoff appearance, because he is playoff experienced. He does have a playoff game under his belt as a quarterback. If you guys remember correctly, when all that wild stuff was going on with Jared Goff a couple years back in the Rams playoffs, John Wolford had to step up and start a game. So last night, I think that he looked efficient and elusive as well when he was in the game. I think it was a good sign to see, seeing him just play well out there. And he's been competing pretty well all throughout training camp to this point. A lot of praise for John Wolford, although he's pretty much locked into our third string role. I think we could do a lot worse as third stringers go. Pittsburgh did have 4 QBs play last night. They had Mitch Trubisky, who's haunted us time to time, 6-touchdown game with the Bears in years past, comeback victory last year in Pittsburgh when Kenny Pickett got hurt. We actually did a number on Trubisky. We looked pretty dang good against Trubisky yesterday, I will say, before we depict the Bucs quarterback stats and whatnot. We'll get into the Steelers a little bit. Trubisky only 1 of 4, 10 yards, was intercepted, and it was a beauty of an interception by Zion McCollum. Maybe one of the highlights of the game for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, especially the defense. McCollum was in one-on-one coverage, ranging back deep. Trubisky tried to sneak one over him. McCollum tipped it to himself and ended up getting a hell of an interception, keeping his knee in bounds along with his 2 feet. So incredible athleticism by our former 5th-round pick last season, Zion McCollum. And I think he could really come on strong this year. I know he struggled in the run game mightily yesterday. I know he overbit on a couple of runs, leading to big runs by the Steelers offense. But I think Zion McCollum is really going to keep pushing the envelope and evolutionizing this defense. I don't know if it'll be initially in the first handful of games this year, but I think as soon as he learns how to be a little bit more disciplined in the run game, learning his lanes, learning where to stay patient, I think we'll see big progress from Zion and McCollum right in front of our eyes this year. Again, great interception at Trubisky, struggled mightily in the run game. Looking next at Tanner Morgan, one of their younger QB options. He only went 5 of 8, 36 yards. He threw an interception as well. My man, J.J. Russell, his gloves from last year's preseason Colts Bucs games are in that case right behind me. He gave them to me after the game. Awesome experience. But J.J. Russell actually snuck in for an interception. And it was kind of quirky because the Bucs apparently got a turnover. This was in the third quarter. Steelers were pinned back up deep within the 5 or 10 yard line. And Corey Brewer seemingly forced a fumble. The new Bucs defensive tackle, who was with the Buffalo Bills last year, seemingly forced a turnover, forced a fumble, recovered the fumble from quarterback Tanner Morgan. The booth reviewed it, said that Morgan actually was the victorious recoverer of the football and that Brewer stripped it away from him after Morgan was down, which led to the very next play being an interception from J.J. Russell. And I think that was a huge play by J.J. Russell. I don't care what quarterback it comes against. When you're vying to be depth on this team, he's fighting to be inside linebacker depth right now, which is actually going to be a decent little battle because you look at the depth chart, you obviously have Devin White, you obviously have Levante David, you have the rookie from Pitt, Sarajier Dennis, who's obviously going to make the team. And then you got KJ Britt, who was a mid-round pick a couple years back from Auburn. And then you got J.J. Russell, who was active for about 6 or 7 games last season. He was an undrafted free agent linebacker from Memphis. Really made a nice impression in his limited action last season. So you have those 5 guys, which really is a decent little middle linebacker room, in my opinion. And it was a beautiful thing to see J.J. Russell try and elevate himself on the depth chart yesterday by forcing a turnover, generating an interception, and helping this Bucs defense fight off the Steelers offense, which was pesky at times yesterday. So good stuff to see there out of J.J. Russell. Again, it was Tanner Morgan at quarterback, but anytime you could get your paws on a ball during preseason, you best ought to go out and do that. Who started the game? Obviously, Kenny Pickett, and he did look efficient. Although a lot of our defensive backups are out there, Kenny Pickett had his way with our defense at times, going 6 of 7, 70 yards and a touchdown. Again, he burnt some guys, but it was our backups more so. You didn't have Vita Vea out there. You didn't have Winfield, Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis, Levante David, Devin White, Shaq Barrett. They were all non-dresses. They all didn't play. Obviously, first-round pick Elijah Canty still coming back from injury. He didn't play as well. You had guys like Yaya Diaby, Logan Hall, Zion McCollum, and, the likes of them trying to combat battle out there. And they fought. They held their own, or at least tried to. But Pittsburgh did display all of their first stringers on offense. So it didn't really surprise me to see Kenny Pickett play that efficient. And then Rudolph, 7 of 12, 132 yards and a touchdown. Really, the Bucs defense, although a lot of backups, was a little disappointing yesterday, in my opinion. A lot of missed tackles, a lot of opportunities for big-time tackles kind of gone out the window. Arm tackles, sloppy tackling, lack of execution, couple one-on-one balls where Pittsburgh just threw it deep and their wide receiver just flat out beat the defenders. So a couple of things to tune up on for the depth of this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. We'll get into that here in a little bit in some of these depth battles as well. But I kind of just wanted to run down the Steelers quarterback room and how they played in front of you guys before we jump into this Bucs room to give you the idea, to paint the picture. Shout out to my man David Ferrara, one of the best real estate agents in the city of Tampa. If you guys need any real estate needs, if you guys need a new home, or if you're moving out of your new home, surely hit up David Ferrara and he will help you with all of that good stuff. He is the man and a very good real estatesman. So yeah, David Ferrara, he'll help you with all of his stuff. Just look him up at EXP Realty or look him up at David Ferrara. Again, thanks for joining the show on Facebook Live today, David Ferrara. We do appreciate that. But as we're bouncing back and forth here from the Bucs quarterback room to the Steelers quarterback room, back to the Bucs quarterback room, which we're about to do right now, I just kind of wanted to let you guys marinate in those Steelers stats to see how, when we go through these Bucs quarterbacks, to see how they line up, to see how it adds up. And we're going to start with the starter here, Baker Mayfield, going 8 of 9, 63 yards and a touchdown. So, no big plays, no gutting plays, no plays that you looked at the stat sheet and you were like, or if you were watching the game and a couple of our guys were at the game, Stank Bastard, Poppy Latte of the Loose Cannons, awesome to see there. And J-Lo, friend of the shows, fan of the shows, frequent flyer of the shows, was at the game as well. So hopefully everybody enjoyed it. But if you were at the game, you noticed Baker Mayfield played efficient football. He didn't make the big throws down the field. Obviously, it's a little bit hard when guys like Evans, Godwin, and Russell Gage aren't suiting up. But nonetheless, he had some feisty receivers competing for depth spots out there. So he was able to do his thing, compiled a 132.9 quarterback rating. And really, he got the ball out quick. And as I alluded to earlier, he was elusive in the pocket. That's going to be huge for an offensive line with a question mark, right? I mean, yeah, it seemed good when we were coming into things, but you have Wirfs moving to left tackle. I don't doubt Wirfs is going to do fine, or Wirfs is going to do anything less than awesome there. So I'm safe with Wirfs. But then you got new left guard Matt Filer coming over. He's been a longtime veteran, not really worried about the left side. The center to the right is where it starts getting dicey. Ryan Jensen is still a little bit behind pace, a little bit more than I would like to believe behind pace in his progress from that gruesome injury he feared last season. And a couple of people have said now, when will we see Jensen? And the answer is hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. He's elected not to go the surgical route, but it does take a little bit longer of time without surgery to recover from these sorts of injuries. So Baker Mayfield, 8 of 9, no sacks taken behind the starting offensive line in yesterday's game. There was no Wirfs or Jensen, however, or Matt Filer. So just keep that in mind. And then Cody Mauch and Luke Odecki held their own actually in the first quarter. But, as things went on during the end of Baker's time, they started letting water into the boat. They started letting the cracks get exposed. And they started getting after the quarterback quite a bit, as JC Allen is joining us in the YouTube comments. What up, JC? How you doing, brother? Hopefully it wasn't too hot yesterday. I know a lot of people were complaining about the heat, not complaining, but just saying, man, how hot it is. And I've been to a couple of those August Buccaneer preseason games. They are hot. But the great JC Allen from Pewter Report chimes in. He's the man. We love all of JC's work. And he was just on the show, I believe, a week back, our last episode. So that was really fun talking with JC. If you guys missed that, go back in. But in about a couple minutes here, we should be joined by Huncho, the other great podcast from the Buccaneers. Stunna is out of the building today. He's got some football preparation to do, and ACATS is out of the building today as well. He'll make his return this fall, he said, when the Bucs regular season picks up a little bit. So just me for now, but we'll be joined by Huncho soon. But evaluating the quarterback room, I thought Mayfield looked the best of the three last night. Again, just efficient, effective, nothing crazy, but made his plays where plays needed to be made. And Kalen Geiger was a frequent target of his. I think Geiger had a couple nabs from Baker Mayfield as Geiger caught 4 for 50 last night. I want to say he at least had 2 catches from Mayfield on 3 targets. So although Baker was wide receiver hindered, he was looking at our guy Kalen Geiger a little bit, which is really a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. Friend of the show, Kalen Geiger, battling for this wide receiver depth, making good rapport with guys like Mayfield, with guys like Trask, will always bode well for you, whether you make the active roster or the practice squad. So really, Mayfield made the most of his weapons and ended it off with a beautiful play, a touchdown pass to wide receiver rookie, 5th-round draft pick this year out of the great state of Nebraska, out of the University of Nebraska, Trey Palmer. And this guy's a speedster. We've been hearing it from a couple veteran wide receivers. Randy Moss really praised this kid. A lot of people praised him. Joe Burrow praised him. If you guys remember correctly, Trey Palmer won the college football championship with LSU when Joe Burrow was there, and then transferred to Nebraska after Burrow was graduated and really made his mark at Nebraska. Yesterday, 4 grabs, 33 yards, and a touchdown. His touchdown reception was beautiful. Back of the end zone float pattern out of the hand of Mayfield, just really floated into Palmer, able to keep both of his feet down. And on top of that, with Trey Palmer, he was used a little bit in the return game yesterday as well, as he's in a return battle with the likes of a Kalen Geiger, Devin Tompkins, and so on and so forth. Dave Moore, I believe, is in that battle as well. So Mayfield looked efficient. He looked clean. He looked the best of him yesterday. He probably got to play with the best of him yesterday, but he still looked like the best of him yesterday. And at the same time, he probably seen the best competition of Steelers defense, as most of their starters were playing at the time when Mayfield took the field. Next up, Kyle Trask came in, and he didn't look terrible. He did have an interception, but he was under siege all night, under fire all night. This is a guy who took a lot of brutalized hits last night. He was sacked 3 times, 3 losses and sacks for 17 yards. And really, to me, Luke Godecki really crapped the bed when Trask was in the game. He was getting beat out there frequently and often. Even on run plays, we would try and run it to the right side behind Godecki, and the runs would just get stifled in the backfield. So that's really something to watch there, to see if big number 67, second-year offensive lineman out of Central Michigan could get some of his footing down. We're going to need him at that right tackle position this year, big time. Yesterday was a little disappointing, leading to 3 Kyle Trask sacks. Trask was 6 of 10, 99 yards with an interception, compiling a 54 quarterback rating. As Bucs Rays Bolts joins the show. Hi, Bucs Podcast. How the hell you guys doing? Bucs Rays Bolts. You guys must be happy. You had Bucs preseason football on last night. You had Wander Franco eviscerate a baseball into smithereens to walk it off for the Rays last night. So good stuff there. We appreciate you guys joining the program this morning as well, Bucs Rays Bolts. But really, to me, Trask, although he didn't play his greatest brand of football, I think he was hindered by the offensive line. And at that point in time as well, the lessers of the Bucs were coming into the game, on the left side of the line, the center of the line, the running backs. It was just one of those things where in preseason, sometimes you don't play with the aces in the hole, and Trask wasn't playing with the aces in the hole. Obviously, interception, not ideal at all. Very bad there. But other than that, I think he played manageable football. I really do. I don't think it was as bad as the numbers indicate. I think it could have been worse. Again, I think Trask did what he could with the limited guys he was given out there. But Bucs Rays Bolts, I'm glad you bring this up. We talked about Wolford a little bit. We haven't really did our deep dive onto Wolford yet, our third string QB, but I liked him too. A lot of the Buccaneers liked him, and a heck of a lot of Bucs fans liked him. So I think Wolford looked pretty promising yesterday, especially for a third string QB. We're going to depict him here more in a little bit once we wrap up the Kyle Trask chatter. But I agree with you. I think Wolford definitely cemented a spot on this roster. Now the big question is this: will the Bucs carry 2 or 3 active quarterbacks on game day, and Bucks Rays Bolt says Baker got lucky too on drive. Yeah, I mean, I tiptoed around it earlier as well. I said Baker was the most fortunate for the situation he was put in last night. He had some fortunate luck with flags and penalties, but he did look the best. Although no mesmerizing plays, nothing that was incredibly eye-opening, nothing that makes you go, holy crap, this guy is definitely back. He just played efficient football, whereas Trask was hindered behind a poor offensive line performance, some wide receiver drops. But really, Trask will get the start next week, so that will be his time to shine, to see if he could step up and make a difference, as Baker will be coming in second next week and Trask will be leading it off next week. What really hurt Trask as well, tight end Keith, man, really big drop on a third down that would have kept the drive going, momentum going. And I know Keith is our blocking tight end. I know he doesn't catch it too much, or at least doesn't get his number called upon a ton to try and catch a ton of passes. But I was in Cleveland last year. I seen him catch his first ever touchdown on a fullback out. He could catch. So to see him drop such an easy one last night, and when I'm saying easy, it was in his breadbasket. It was literally between his numbers. And again, on a third and about 5 or 6, Trask put it right where he needed to. Would have been a 20 to 30-yard gain down the field. Instead, Keith dropped it. Pivotal drop. Steelers got the ball back in decent field position and march on to up their ante, to up the lead a little bit. So Trask didn't get any help by his wide receivers whatsoever, regardless. But he did look floundered at times. And I will say, Godecki and Mock had Trask under pressure a lot from that right side. I'm going to have to watch a film and tape a little bit better when the all-22 comes out. I'm going to have to see myself if Trask held onto the ball too long seemingly, or if it was really, really bad offensive line breakdown and play from the right side, which it seemed like it to me last night. It didn't seem like Trask was holding onto the ball too long or anything like that. It seemed like Trask was getting it out manageable. But we'll see what happens in terms of Trask starting next week, to see if he could try and help maybe up his ante in the quarterback battle. But I will say, between those two, before we get into Walford, I'll say Baker Mayfield, a mini victory last night. Not going to say huge win, but I'm going to say a mini win. Do you think Bucs trade Lance? I'm thinking you're probably asking if they're going to trade for Trey Lance. I don't think so. The rumors you're saying are circling. I don't think the Bucs are going to trade for Trey Lance for a multitude of reasons, and I'll kind of list them real quick. I have on previous podcast as well why I wouldn't trade for a young quarterback if I'm the Bucs. But this is my take, my opinion on the thing, to all 18 of you in the room right now, or however many there are watching. But this is my take on it. I'll say this: I don't think the Bucs are going to trade for Trey Lance. I don't think they're going to trade for anybody at any position. They could have done a couple of things heading into the draft, or before the draft, or shortly after the draft. They chose not to, which is fine. But this team is in position, especially at the quarterback position, where it's actually a blessing in disguise, regardless of what happens to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year, because you're going to get 3 scenarios here, Bucs, Rays, Bolts. And one of these is going to play out where you don't have to give up 3 first-round draft picks to, maybe probably not 3 anymore, but probably a first-round pick and a later pick to get a Trey Lance. You'd have to give up more than 1 pick, and one of them would surely have to be a first-round pick. I think the Bucs are going to do this at the quarterback position while they let it play out. I think that it's ultimately Baker Mayfield who is under center week one. I've been saying that. I've been consistent on that. And although I think it's a legit quarterback competition, I think this fares well, um, for Baker Mayfield, at least at this point in time, because A, looked efficient yesterday. B, he's kind of on his last dance here, right? He bounced around a little bit, got banged up in Cleveland after looking pretty dang good to start his Cleveland career. As Bucs Rays Bolt said, heard Bucs can move or two, according to Todd Bowles for veteran. I don't think that's going to happen. And I'll keep explaining that here shortly. But I think when you're looking at Baker Mayfield, I think the answer there is it's his last dance, and you're going to start him, and I would start him because going from Mayfield to Trask is a lot better than going from Trask to Mayfield. That's first and foremost right there. I feel a lot more comfortable bringing in the youngster after Mayfield than saying, hey, Baker, you're going to start on the bench. And then, hey, who knows, 2, 4, 6 weeks later, you go up to him, oh, hey, Baker, how you doing, buddy? Do you want to start for us after he was riding pine for the past handful of games in favor of Trask? So I don't really think there's too much to it there. I think Baker Mayfield starts. And then if he starts and the Bucs do really well and he keeps winning football games, and next thing you know, the Bucs are in playoff contention, hell, maybe even in the playoffs. Next thing you know, you call lightning in a bottle with Baker Mayfield. He's still a young quarterback, and he's still young enough. I mean, he's really not that much older than Trey Lance. At the end of the day, Bucs, Rays, Bolts, and all the others out there, Trey Lance is 23, going to be 24 in the middle of the season. So we'll say he's 24 for his football age. Baker Mayfield, 28, 4 years, ain't that crazy of a difference. So Mayfield's still a little young. If he takes a starting job, if he leads his team to the playoffs, to me, he'll get a Geno Smith type contract, perhaps, where the Bucs aren't going to lock him in to something crazy, overblowing way too long, nothing 4, 5, 6 year range. I think they would give Baker either a 2 for 40 or a 3 for 60-ish type if Mayfield leads this team to the playoffs all year, if he starts all year, and the biggest thing is if he doesn't turn the ball over all year. That's scenario number one on why I don't think the Bucs do anything at the QB position outside of what they already have. Baker Mayfield's still a young, viable option. Scenario number two would be if Mayfield starts this year, Mayfield struggles this year, and you bring in Kyle Trask. And let's remember here, Kyle Trask was just a second-round pick 2 seasons ago out of Florida, where he played a really, really good brand of football. Trask and Lance were in the same draft class. Lance, 23 years old, Trask, 25 years old. So both out of the same class, both pretty young. I think scenario number two would be Baker Mayfield starts 0-2, 0-3, and it's really an ugly 0-2, or it's really an ugly 0-3. They look at Trask and they say, hey, we used the second round pick on you. We like what we've seen time to time, preseason, regular season, meaningless games. And you've learned under Tom Brady for 2 years. You learned under Bruce Arians for 2.5, 3 years. Let's see what you got. Say Trask goes in there, and we don't even have to be, bought into playoff contention with Trask, but say you get 6, 7 wins out of the Trask belt, and he looks pretty dang good in doing so. I think the Bucs are going to step on the brakes and say, hey, we have a 25-year-old quarterback who looks pretty dang good. We're going to keep him under his rookie contract for one more season. We'll start him next year, and then we'll make a decision on this guy. That would be scenario number two, where they still end up with a young QB who looks promising. So scenario one is Mayfield balls out, 28 years old, gets a 2 to 3 year deal after the year. Scenario two is if Mayfield struggles, Trask comes in by week 3 or 4, Trask balls out, and then the Bucs have a cheap quarterback under rookie control still for next season. And then scenario three, which no Bucs fan wants, is the Bucs absolutely just sucking ass this year. They do terrible. They do pathetic. they win along the lines of 2, 3, 4 games. You try Baker. He has 3, 4 snubs. You bench him. You bring in Trask. He plays 8 or 9 games. He looks terrible. So then you got to resort to the John Wolfords of the world for the last game or two just to try and get some competent quarterback play. But the thing with that scenario would be then, hey, we have 2 or 3 wins. Well, guess what? That puts you in territory or in line next year then for Drake May out of North Carolina, for a Caleb Williams out of USC, for a Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington. Not that any Bucs fan wants that third scenario to play out. That's why I put it as scenario 3. But whether you're looking at scenario 1, 2, or 3, scenario 1 or 2, scenario 1 means the Bucs make the playoffs. Baker plays good. They sign him to a decent contract. Scenario 2, Trask comes in midway through the year, plays real well. They have him under a cheap deal next year. Scenario 3 is the Bucs are terrible. They get a high pick for a quarterback next year. You really have a young quarterback regardless of which one of 3 scenarios happen. You're either going to get a 28-year-old former first pick of the draft in Baker Mayfield, you're going to get a 25-year-old fresh second-round pick in Trask, or you're going to get a really high-end rookie next year with the top pick in the NFL draft. So I think the Bucs are set up in great position. I wouldn't trade for Trey Lance for all of those reasons. Why would you give up 2 picks, 3 picks for Trey Lance, who might not even play better than Baker, who might not even be a better quarterback down the road than Kyle Trask, or when we could just really maybe stink that bad and get a high-end pick next year, and then we wouldn't have to lose a pick and hold our breath on a guy like Trey Lance. So Trey Lance is really a gamble for that reason. I don't see the Bucs wasting picks on him, nor do I see them wasting draft picks on any other veteran between now and week 1. WQEE, the key, noon in Georgia, in Atlanta, is tuned in on Facebook. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We love when you tune in. Everybody's that's tuned in today has been totally great, fantastic. Lindsay Didden, how you doing? Lindsay is tuning in with the 100 sign. Keep it 100, Lindsay. We appreciate you joining us on this wonderful Saturday morning of the Buccaneers in our post-game show coverage. And keep an eye out, ladies and gentlemen. This season, we're going to be doing something special for Bucs games, pre or post-game. Maybe halftime. No, we're just kidding. But we're going to have some good stuff for you guys for Bucs games this year. You guys know where to find the top coverage, post-game, pre-game, and all that more. You could stay up to date with us at Buccaneers. But we do have a lot more to break down here in not that much time. So we appreciate you guys joining us. And we're going to end strong here. We still got about 20 minutes left or so on the show. So it's been fun, and keep battling, keep combating with us here on your Saturday. Hope your coffee's good. If you guys got bacon and eggs, steak and eggs, whatever the hell you guys got. So Bucs, Rays, Bolt said, do you think Bucs tanking this year or bad year? No, we're not going to tank. Absolutely never going to tank. We're not going to tank. We couldn't be the farthest thing from tanking. Let me explain it to you like this. This is probably Todd Bowles' last crack at things as a head coach in the NFL, right? Todd Bowles, former head coach of the Jets, got fired there. Didn't make the playoffs there. Last year, first year with the Bucs, Bruce Arians said he wanted to give him a chance to win, so he handed down the team with Tom Brady to Todd Bowles. The only problem is we were sluggish last year out of the gate. We really didn't do much. And then we kind of backed our way into the NFC South Championship. And again, it was a playoff year. It was fun in theory, but really disappointing year in the whole grand scheme of things for the Bucs in the 2022 season, which leaves Todd Bowles' job on the line, in my opinion, this year. Because if the Bucs go out there and they tank, and even if they tell Todd Bowles, hey, Todd, you're going to be safe, don't tank, don't do it, Todd, don't do it, Todd. Or if they tell him to, hey, tank, Todd, we need this high-end pick next year. Regardless, Todd Bowles isn't going to tank. He's a smart man. He's a very, very smart man. What's in it for Bowles if he tanks? Looking for a job? Hello. If Bulls tanks, even if they tell him, oh, rest assured you'll be here next year, sir. The Texans just did that with Lovie Smith. And Lovie Smith put his foot down, beat the Colts in the last week of the season, and said, I'm not tanking. He ended up getting fired regardless. You best bet if the Bucs are 2-14 or 4-12 or even 6-10 heading into that last game of the season, and the Glazers never tank, so they're not going to do this. But say if they call down and they said, hey, sir, Jason Light, sir, we're going to have to ask you to ask Todd Bowles to tank, sir. We're going to want a better draft pick. We want Michael Penix in the middle of the first round, blah, blah, blah. Jason Light calls Todd Bowles. Todd, hey, going to need you to tank. Todd Bowles, A, he'd laugh. He'd say, I'm not going to tank. Never going to tank. Can't tank. My job's on the line. And B, he might say, you know what? Sure. But sure as hell not going to tank either way. And those players in that locker room would never tank. Mike Evans, Levante David, Vita Vea, Baker Mayfield, who's on his last chance as well. These guys aren't tank material. So for those of you watching, for those of you hoping, or for just Bucs fans out there in general that look up in the morning and say, oh, man, it'd be lovely to have a Drake May or a Caleb Williams. I'd love to tank. Well, you don't have a great attitude as a fan then, and really you're not a great fan then, because tanking does a couple things. A, it brutalizes the season. You're going to have hell after hell every week trying to watch your Buccaneers football, which should be 3 hours of awesomeness. If you're hoping for tank, you don't get that week in and week out. And then B, if you want to tank, you're really hoping for a lot of jobs to be axed. That means you're hoping for a guy like Bowles to lose his job. That means you're probably hoping for the Bucs to trade a guy like Mike Evans, because if you're going to be bad and you're going to tank, it's going to put your franchise in a hole where you really can't crawl out of it for a couple of years. So then you could say goodbye to Mike Evans finishing his career in a Bucs uniform. You could say goodbye to Levante David coming back next year. For those asking to tank, you better be careful what the hell you're wishing for. You better be careful what the hell you're asking for, because there would be a hell of a lot of repercussions in negative ways, more than just the product on the gridiron for the city of Tampa if the Bucs were to tank. I think you fans rooting for a tank would be idiotic. Let me put it like that. I think it's always idiotic for fans who root for a tank. I think it'd be idiotic for us to do so this year. The NFC South is at the taking. Do you think Todd Bowles on hot seat if misses playoffs? It depends. If the Bucs win 6, 7, 8 games, they'll probably bring him back. Now, if Todd Bowles goes out there and tanks, they sure as hell ain't bringing him back. If he wins less than 6 games, he's gone. To me, he's got to win at least 6 to fight for his job. If he wins 5, 4, 3, and it's an ugly year, he's as good as gone. And I think you could put some of the burden at that point then on the previous regime at that point. He did get handed a tough spot, I will say. I love BA Bruce Arians. That's my guy right there. And I think Todd Bowles is friends with a lot of Bruce's friends, right? But at the end of the day, Bowles got handed a job. Okay, that'd be like you going into the office one day. You're working on a project, because this was in the spring, right? You've been working on this project. Midway through that day, they're like, oh, we're actually going to put you on a more important task, but you got to keep everything the same and you got to keep getting to work. It would be like, all right, well, Bowles got the job at the more important task, but he had to keep things the same. It was so late in the game. So now this year will be the true test on Todd Bowles. This year, you get a little bit more of Todd Bowles himself. You get a little bit more of Todd Bowles guys, not only on the field, but in the coaching realm of things. So this year will be a big break or make it year for Todd Bowles. And my prediction, my guess is 6 wins or more, and he could be safe. I'm not going to guarantee him to be safe, but I think 6 wins or more, and he could be safe. Anything under 6, I think he's as good as gone. But I think if he makes the playoffs, he's automatically back next year. I don't see a scenario where the Bucs make the playoffs this season, Todd Bowles makes the playoffs back-to-back years, where he's gone. I don't. I absolutely don't. I don't care if we limp our way in at 7-10 or 8-9 and we barely win the NFC South. And then, Todd Bowles, regardless, he got to the playoffs in a year we weren't expected to. That's if he makes it this year. So I've really got 3 levels of status on his job uncertainty. Making the playoffs guarantees him another season. If the Bucs make the playoffs, we get a 3rd year out of Todd Bowles guaranteed. If Bowles wins 6 games or more and the Bucs are competitive this year, they showed fight, hunger, and ambition, 90% chance Todd Bowles will be the coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers moving into the 2024 season. If we win 6 or less and it's ugly, it's sloppy, guys are giving up, it looks like there could be a potential locker room combustion going on, whether it's tanking or whether it's just terrible, pathetic play, I think he's as safe as gone. I think he's as good as gone. So Todd Bowles really has, he has the power in his hands. It's not a hard NFC South. I mean, we play our division twice. That's a blessing. We play the AFC South, the Houston Texans, the Tennessee Titans. These are winnable games. The Colts, the Jaguars. Okay, Jags, they might be a little tough in-state rivalry, but we'll sure as hell slap the head out of that team when we play Jacksonville. When Jacksonville comes to Tampa this year, we're going to beat the crap out of them. And that's a promise. We're going to beat Jacksonville. We're going to win 3 out of 4 games of those AFC South. We'll probably drop one on the road is my prediction. I know we play the Texans and Colts, but this is a different Bucs team. Probably drop one of those. Weird things happen. But we're going to beat the AFC South 3 out of 4 times. We're going to beat our division at least 5 out of 6 times. That's already 8 wins, guys. 8 wins right there. And then, oh, by the way, we play the NFC North, which is the Packers, the Bears, the Vikings, the Lions. We're going to win at least 2 of those. So I got us at 10 wins, probably at 10 wins, which means Todd Bowles, in my opinion, 100,000% will be the head coach heading into the 2024 season. That's my theory. That's my win-loss prediction on the season, 10-7 with a playoff appearance and a Todd Bowles retained coach heading into next year, which means we'll probably have Mayfield or Trask as our quarterback again next season. Hey, good morning. Hey, Lindsay, good morning. Fire the damn cannons. Hope wherever you're watching from is a tremendous one. We appreciate, or listening from, because we are on a couple listening outlets out there, Spotify, Apple, and so much more. We appreciate Lindsay this morning. My man, Rolla 217, one of the best gamers there are, one of the most underrated gamers of the video game industry there are, joins us this morning. If you guys need or want some good gaming content in your life, go over and check out Rolla 217. You guys will not be disappointed. He just beefs his game up week in and week out, and he does a multiple levels of these gaming streams. So Rolla, thanks for joining us. Man, we're getting some big dogs in the house. JC Allen joining us, Bucks Rays Bolts, Lindsay, Rolla, Olivia. It's been incredible so far as we're making our way through the Buccaneers here on this episode. Lindsay says completely right. Thank you, Lindsay. I think you agree with me on not tanking. I think we know as Bucks fans or fans of any sport, if you're a real sports fan and you try and get into tanking, it's just ugly stuff. Do you think Devin White gone before deadline? No, I don't think he's gone before the deadline, because that would be against everything I just preached, right? I just predicted 10 wins. If Devin White's gone before the deadline, that probably means a couple of things. A, we'll hit nowhere near 10 wins. That means we'll probably get in the 3 to 6 win mark, and we're very much so struggling by the time the deadline hits. And B, Devin White wants to play and ball out for a contract now. I think he realizes that. I think if you've listened to the past few Devin White press conferences or clips or media appearances that we've gotten from Devin, I think that he speaks differently. I think that he realizes what's at stake. I think he knows a lot more is on the line if he holds out, misses some football games, or just plays a little bit lazy in general. So, no, I don't think Devin White gets traded this year. To me, the most likely thing to happen would be if he has to leave the team next year during free agency, and then we get some sort of comp pick for him for exiting. Um, yeah, Bucks raise bolts. Great question. A lot of people are asking too, and we've seen it with the Bears with Roquan Smith last season as well, right? So, no shame in that question, and it could still very much so happen. I'm just giving my opinion on why I don't believe it'll happen, because I think the Bucks will be fighting this year, and I think if we are fighting, if we're going to be that good, or if we're going to be that big of a threat in the NFC South or in the NFC in general, it will rely a lot on this defense, which means if it's relying on this defense, a guy like Devin White is going to have to play some very superb defense out there and really elevate his consistency. So I think Devin White is a Buck for at least this season. If he plays well, we might reward him, and we could always franchise tag too. Not that he would like that at all, but some underrated stars from the game last night, some guys' performance that I enjoyed. Obviously, our punter, I think we probably are going, by the time this year's over, I think we have a top two, if not the best punter in all of football. Jake Camarda, the former Georgia punter, was doing his thing last night. Equated 6 total punts for 287 yards, leads to 48 yards a punt. 3 punts inside the 20. So for those that, 47, 48 yards isn't too good. Well, that's because he was backing him up inside the 20. You can't punt forever. You can't, toe the line forever. So, Camarda had a hell of a game last night as Bucks raise bolts, still get wild card spot, 3 wild card spots. Yep, we still very much so could, but I think that's going to be a harder route, believe it or not, than the NFC South, because you're going to get some competition for those wild card spots stemming from the likes of Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, the 49ers, or the Rams, whoever doesn't win there. You're just going to have a bigger uphill battle to me if you try and get in the wild card spots. Not saying it's impossible, especially with the 3 of them, but it's just a harder path than the NFC South, where we do control our own destiny a little bit more because we play the Panthers, Falcons, and Saints twice. So that breaks out 6 of 17 games on the schedule, and that's why I like it there more, because if you win at least 4 or 5 of those games against the South, right then and there, you really only need four more wins to maybe win the South overall in the year. So if you have a strong showing against your own division, the NFC South, I think that that's the easiest way, the best opportunity to win the division. So Jay Camarda, incredible last night. I think he is one of the best, if not the best, punters we have to offer. Kick return wise, Trey Palmer looked really good. 2 returns, 54 yards, 27 yards a return there. Tompkins got a chance at returning. We've seen Geiger get a chance to return a punt. Fumbled a punt late, Kalen Geiger did, which is sad to see, but he did have a strong showing outside of the return game. So good to see there. Again, some interceptions now changing from special teams to the defensive scheme of things. Zion McCollum had a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful interception, tipped it to himself, knee on the green grass, not on the white grass, meaning it was a clean pick. Zion looked incredible in pass coverage yesterday, looked awful in run stuffing yesterday. So interesting to see there. My man, J.J. Russell, gave me his gloves after Colts Bucs preseason last year, got a huge interception as well, and he also added a pass deflection as well. So good stuff to see there. And then sacks wise, beautiful thing out of Cam Gill, Super Bowl champ for this team. He beat the Chiefs with us, missed all the last season on a torn ACL. He was getting after the quarterback all night last night, no matter if it was Pickett, Trubisky, Mason Rudolph. He had 1.5 sacks and really really, really made his presence felt. And I think this edge rush room could be a beautiful thing for the Buccaneers, especially if Shaq Barrett comes back healthy and if Joe Tryon-Shoyinka takes the next step this year. You're looking at Shaq Barrett, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Anthony Nelson, who's coming off a career best year, and then you add in Cam Gill, Super Bowl champ. And then, by the way, two rookies, Yaya Diaby and Jose Ramirez. And another guy who had a really nice night last night as well, defensively, under the radar name, undrafted free agent out of Charlotte. He was a Charlotte 49ers. Shout out to them. Marquise Watts really looked good last year. Rondé Barber was alluding to him all night in the broadcast booth, said how he had a hell of a college career. He had a sack last night, and he's repping Shaq Barrett's old number, which is pretty dang cool. Obviously, Shaq Barrett moved to number 7. Marquise Watts was wearing the number 58 last night. So in terms of pass rushing, those are who stood out to me. Mike Green chipped in with the half a sack there as well. He was a practice squad backup body for this Bucs team last year. Cleve and me has a question. Sorry if you spoke on it already, but how good of a touch pass by Baker was that? We did allude on it, but we'll dip our toes back into it here quickly. Baker didn't really tear the lid off the jar last night, but he sure as hell looked pretty dang clean, pretty efficient, pretty good. And his best part was that mobility. And you seen the mobility a lot on that touch pass because he had to elude some pressure in the pocket and put some touch on that pass. Anytime you throw a touch pass, you're probably on the run. You're probably in a mobile situation. So between that play and a couple others by Baker Mayfield last night, I think I was impressed. Again, nothing that, glued your eyes open, no passes or plays that were like, wow, we got to give this guy the job right now, but really clean football, really impressed with his mobility. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be about keeping those interceptions down. If you're Baker Mayfield, he did just that last night. He did not throw a pick. And again, man, love you, Tom, the GOAT. Great quarterback, brought us a lot here, but it was refreshing to see the likes of Mayfield and John Wolford, even a little bit of Trask, but especially Mayfield and Wolford and their elusiveness last night, and Trask as well. So the 3 Bucs quarterbacks, I think, collectively played okay last night, and Baker Mayfield played good. I'll say he played good, clean football, and that touch pass was pretty dang nice. And I will say it was a treat to have Trey Palmer on the receiving end of that. I think Trey Palmer's going to be one of these kids who is talked about for a while around these streets. I think he's going to be the new, but a little bit better version of Scotty Miller. So Cleve and me, that was a beautiful touch pass by Baker, not only for the touch pass part, but for his elusiveness in the pocket. It was really, really good to see. Lindsay says, that was you. I saw JJ give his gloves away. Didn't see who to. Nice. Yep, last year, Lindsay, not to be misspoken with last night if I misspoke on that, but last year I went to Colts Bucs preseason in Indianapolis, and JJ Russell after the game was looking around. I kind of made eye contact with him. He came over, he gave me his gloves. It was really cool to see. One of the gloves fell down, came back up. So it was really cool. And I will say this as well, for those of you who love the Bucs, who love football, preseason football is an incredible experience. I got front row seats in Indianapolis last season to see the Bucs and Colts, first row, right by where the Bucs came out of the tunnel, for a little over 100 a pop, 100 something. But those tickets in real games, real life, are like $1,000. And then we were able to talk to Scotty Miller. We were able to talk to Kyle Trask. We were able to personalize with JJ Russell a little bit. So preseason is really cool on the fan interaction part of things. And remember, the cool thing about preseason is the rosters are much bigger. So if you're attending one of these games live, you're going to get the chance to meet a lot more players on the field, because right now we're carrying around the 90 player mark. And, in the regular season, you're in the middle of the 50s. So the roster gets cut in half for regular season games, essentially opposed to preseason games, which really gives you the chance to meet more NFL players, get some more cool stuff, get some autographs and whatnot. So yeah, Lindsay, that was me. If you're talking about Colts Bucks last year, that was me. Thank you, as Alpha Academy says. You're surely welcome, Cleve and me. We love breaking down the boys. So any questions that anyone ever has, Baker, Trask, we just love it all. Couple more things on the defensive side of things before we get into the kicker battle offense and then wrap this puppy up if we don't have any more questions. But defensively, I think some of these guys played well, like Kayvon Merriweather, the undrafted free agent. I think he had a nice game yesterday, 4 total tackles there. Josh Hayes, our rookie cornerback we drafted this year from Kansas State, I think played pretty good. And you're going to need guys like that to step up this year and really try and make a difference because we're a little low on cornerback depth, safety depth. That's going to be something interesting to see how the battles turn out, who makes it and who doesn't. A guy like D. Delaney right now, a guy like Zion McCollum, they're pretty much right there in terms of making the roster because the lack of depthness and competition. Derek Pitts and Keenan Isaac didn't have their best games last night. I believe Pitts was burnt on a deep ball by the Steelers. So those guys, they'll have to step it up a little bit, and that's for sure. And one name that a lot of people are looking over, Christian Izien, undrafted free agent out of Rutgers. I think he has a great chance to make the Buccaneers roster and not only make the Bucs roster, but I think he has a great chance to be the starting nickel on this team. As an undrafted free agent out of Rutgers, Todd Bowles has had nothing but nice praise for Christian Izien so far to this point. He played a little bit yesterday, which to me bodes well for him as well. He kind of had more of the starter or key depth position role yesterday, Christian Izien, the safety out of Rutgers. So to me, that bodes well in terms of he's viewed more so as a starter or a top backup on this team. So for those of you wondering, freaking out a little bit, oh, Christian Izien barely played. Yaya Diaby only got a handful of plays in there. What's going on? Same with Anthony Nelson. I think the Bucs are taking their known commodities or what they think are known commodities and not risking injury, trying to play them more minimal. I think next week we'll or the week after, either in game 2 or 3, we'll get a quarter or two collectively from the starters on all 3 units combined, special teams, offense, defense, and I think we'll get a more accurate depiction of the depth chart. Remember, the depth chart that's out right now is just really fluff. I mean, for Bucs, it says Mayfield or Trask for quarterback. That's all you need to know on the status of the week 1 depth chart. And last but not least, defensively, who stood out to me, very excited for this one, CJ Brewer, the former Buffalo Bill from last season. He played 2 or 3 games for Buffalo last year. We brought him in as a free agent this year. Again, he was just seemingly blowing up the middle of the offensive line all night when he was in the game. CJ Brewer, he had a pass deflection at the line of scrimmage, which was beautiful to see. He had a tackle for a loss, and he recovered that fumble that ended up getting overturned in Pittsburgh's favor. So although he didn't end up getting the fumble recovery there, he was almost around an additional turnover. So CJ Brewer, the free agent from Buffalo, making big waves in terms of disruption on that front line. I would give my 3 gold stars defensively last night to the following: Marquis Swats, undrafted free agent out of Charlotte, had a sack, was really after the quarterback all night. Beautiful thing to see there. CJ Brewer, the former Buffalo Bill, really seemed like he had his head on and was ready to roll. And then Cam Gill, former Bucs Super Bowl champion, missed all of last season with the torn ACL. Him, his 1.5 sacks, and his quarterback pressures yesterday were really, really a beautiful thing to see. Moving on from defense to wrap up the special teams and the kicking competition battle. To my knowledge, it's pretty much Chase's job to lose. So unless Chase really screws up out there, unless Chase makes a pivotal mistake out there, he will be your Tampa Bay Buccaneers kicker for the 2023 NFL season. Is a guy like J.C. Allen of Pewter Report and others have reported. The Bucs brought him in free agency this year. Is my man Marcelo Piccolo from college is joining the show. Thanks, brother. Been a while. Hope all is well with you. Hope you're living your life to the fullest, brother. Really a treat that you're tuned in. But in terms of the kicking competition, I think McLaughlin has a heavy edge on Blankenship right now. Rodrigo did go 1-for-1 kicking last night, but Chase got both extra points, right? So to me, if you're the man getting the extra points, they're trying to see what they have in Rodrigo, to me, to see if he's a viable option to keep around on the practice squad. I think the Bucs do like having two kickers, one on the active roster, one on the practice squad. So I think they're seeing an audition of what they have from Rodrigo to see if he'll stay in the grand scheme of things. And last night, he made his 35-yard kick. So for him, that's great to stay in the race, but it is Chase's to lose. The only way I see Chase McLaughlin losing this battle is if the next week or two he misses at least 2 kicks in preseason, and I don't really see that happening. It has been a little bit of a closer competition than thought, but that's not because Chase is kicking bad. It's just Rodrigo is kicking a little better than what people would have imagined to this point. But again, I'd say it's 99% chance Chase McLaughlin's our kicker week 1, barring some crazy scenario. And last night's game kind of boded to that as well, as McLaughlin handled our extra points and kickoff specialties, which to me, they're gearing him up for the start of the regular season. And at the same time, they want to see what they have out of Rodrigo kicking wise to see if he can be on the practice squad. Can Tom Moore still see the field? He was looking fresh out there yesterday. He was peaches and cream. He was hustling. He was getting around. He's still right on the Bucs sideline, Tom Moore is. So it's pretty incredible that he is back for another year and able to move around like he is. He doesn't need a walker. He doesn't need a cane or anything like that. He's 84 years old, and he's done his service time, man. I mean, he was with the Colts forever from 98 to 2010. Then he went to the Jets for a year. Then he went to the Titans for a year. Then he was with the Cardinals from 13 to 17. Took a year off of football, came back to the Bucs when Bruce Arians came, but he's still sticking around the Bucs even without Bruce on the sideline. I think that pays homage to show how great of a guy, how great of a football brain Tom Moore is. And I was actually lucky to run into it, Tom Moore, a couple of times. I've ran into Tom Moore last year in Indianapolis before Bucs Colts preseason game. The night before, he was hanging out. Very nice guy. And then at the Arians Family Foundation golf out, and last spring I ran into Tom Moore as well, who's really just an incredible guy. So yep, he could still see, and he actually gets around pretty well, I will say. He sticks to it. He's a tough warrior out there, and he's a good football guy to have on the squad. So love me some Tom Moore. I've been very impressed with what he's brought to this Bucs team in a short period of time. So now we just have a couple offensive stars to give out for the game, and then we're going to wrap things up here on our first post-game show of the 2023 season. Again, Hunch had something last minute pop up, was supposed to join us. That fell through. Stunning. I don't know what the hell happened to him. Hopefully he can. No, he's working with the kids. You know, high school football coach. You're very busy, especially on Saturday mornings. And then Katz, he'll be back this September to the program. So very much so looking forward to that. And so is Bucko. Bucko is returning this September to the program as well. So good to see there. Offensively, I think David Moore, the veteran wide receiver from Seattle, stood out. 3 receptions for 66 total yards, and he made some really good grabs too. They weren't just cheesy grabs. He averaged 22 yards a catch, so that's no cheat meal right there. He looked pretty dang good out there. Hasn't been himself the past few NFL seasons. We'll see if a reunion with Dave Canales really gets him going. Again, Kalen Geiger and Trey Palmer, each with 4 receptions. Geiger meaning manning his total, I should say, to 50 yards on those 4 receptions. Trey Palmer getting 33 yards and a touchdown out of his 4 receptions there. Undrafted free agent tight end out of Illinois State, Tanner Tuola, had a nice 20-yard reception. And again, O'Keefe with a pivotal big drop. O'Keefe dropped a Kyle Trask pass on 3rd and medium that would have went for 25 to 30 yards down the field. You just cannot do that this day and age. It was unfortunate to see. Ryan Miller, the free agent wide receiver from Furman, the rookie, did 2 catches for 20 yards. Pretty good stuff there. In terms of running wise for the Bucs team, they didn't really get a lot from the ground game. Chase Edmonds had 6 carries for 18 yards. Sean Tucker 6 for 10 yards. Honestly, Laird 2 for 8 yards. Keyshawn Vaughn 7 for 4. Where the fun came in, and this is what you see with the Dave Canales type offense opposed to a Byron Leftwich type offense, was more so on the wide receiver reverses and trickery out of the run game. Bucs had Tay Barber, Devin Tompkins, Kalen Geiger all take carries from the wide receiver position. And the best one was Tay Barber's 1 carry for 13 yards over there. And then again, I would just give my gold star. Not that he's going to start at all, but I was impressed with how John Wolford composed himself, kept himself in the game, and a veteran who made a great sighting as well. It was really just refreshing to see lifelong Buck, big William Golston out there. He's been doing it for so long. We brought him back on a cheap 1-year deal at the end of camp to really, really bolster this defensive line. Newcomer Greg Gaines didn't play either. The funniest part before we get out of here is the overreaction from a lot of people, including post-game press conference questions. You had people asking Baker if he knows he's a starter yet. He said, no, I do not know. So if you people can lay off Baker and Trask with that question, it's clearly not out there yet. And then fans on X, on Twitter, whatever the hell you want to call it, just melting down, totally in meltdown mode. There's a difference, people, in breaking down the game and having negative tweets about specific plays or completely overreacting to preseason. A lot of you, sadly, were overreacting to preseason. We have to remember, it's just one game. Take a deep breath and chill. It's only preseason football, and we really have our next 2 games, to me, to help better bolster the competition. The Bucs' next game will be taking place a week from today in New York against the Jets. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets of Hard Knocks. You might get some Bucs action in there if you watch Hard Knocks. And what's going to be exciting about this week is the week of practices that the Bucs and Jets do have planned together. So next week's preseason game is still going to be important, but at the end of the day, the practices against the Jets next week are really what's going to drive the competitions, the media, and all that good stuff. So remember, Bucs Jets this week. We're going to have practices this week together, Bucs and the Jets. Expect some chippiness and fights and chit-chatting going on out there. And then we wrap them up in a game day Saturday, August 19th at 7:30 Eastern. And then we end August 26th against the Ravens as Lindsey adds Love, Geiger, and Tompkins. I think Palmer will be a better returner from us. I agree with you 1,000%. Lindsey, my father and I said the same thing. Trey Palmer is going to bring an aspect that we've been lacking. He's going to be everything that we thought Jalen Darden would be. I'll put it like that. I think Palmer will be everything that we thought Jalen Darden would be. Remember, Jalen Darden, mid-round pick a couple years back from North Texas, was waived in the middle last season. Now he's on the Browns, I believe. So he faltered here. I think Palmer will succumb. But I will say Geiger and Tompkins, not bad depth pieces, whether they're on the active roster or practice squad. I love both of those guys, but I 110% agree it's Trey Palmer's job to lose. in terms of the return game. You've been on point. Appreciate you this morning. I'll be watching your future shows go. But Lindsay, that means the world to me and us here at the Buccaneers. We are a group, but this morning it was me giving my solo take on it, and I've been hanging with you guys for an hour and 16 minutes now, so I've had an incredible time doing just that. So I appreciate you taking your time to hanging out with me and hearing my opinions, points, and previews all morning long about what happened last night in Bucs Steelers. We appreciate people like you so much, Lindsay, who really do make the show special with your contribution comments and your nice comments as well. August 26th, Bucs wrap up preseason against the Ravens. So next week against the Jets, the week after against the Ravens, you're really going to get some good competition, some good depth battles, and some sad roster cuts there. But at the same time, with sad roster cuts, always add on a couple of cool additions as well. So the Bucs depth chart you see right now isn't going to be the end game at all. Really, it's just the beginning, not only for the roster, but for the coaching staff, the depth chart, and all of those things as well. So I wouldn't overreact on X or Twitter. I wouldn't cry on Facebook about last night's games. I would try and watch the film, build on the positive things like McCollum and pass coverage, like Mayfield's efficiency, like the left side of the O-line seemed to hold their own, even though being backups. And then you could start critiquing and nitpicking the things that need work. Hey, Luke Godecki, you could look more fresh here. Hey, Trask, where can you sharpen up? Hey, Zion in the run game here. Don't overreact about it, but study some tape and, just be a fan and appreciate the Bucs are back and make some knowledgeable statements about the Bucs team. But I'm going to get out of here. I've been talking solo for way too long now, an hour and 20 minutes solo. Damn near. So appreciate all you guys tuning with us, and the Buccaneers will be back this week. We're actually going to have a show midweek this week. Hopefully have a couple of good guests on, key guests, special guests. So that's always a good time. But with the big week coming up against the Jets and all that good stuff, I really do think a big show is in store this week. And we're going to make that happen because we need to. We're the Buccaneers. We're the source that people depend their news from, their hot takes, their opinions from. So it's been an incredible Saturday going over the post-game coverage with you guys. I've had a ball. I've had a blast. Again, didn't expect it to last for half of what the show did. And, we were expecting some people. So it's been beautiful. On behalf of Huncho, Bucko, Stunna, A-Cats, and myself, we appreciate you guys tuning in. You can keep up with us on Twitter today at Buccaneers. That's BUCCATEERS. You can keep up with us on Instagram at BuccaneersPod. Keep up with us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcast, Stitcher, Deezer, and so much more at Buccaneers Podcast. And you can keep up with us on Facebook today at Bucs Life News. It's been a really fun one. It's been incredible. Thank you to Lindsay, Cleve and me, Bucs Rays Bolts, JC Allen, Rolla, Olivia, and everybody more, all the other people who made this show so special this morning. We appreciate it. We hope to see you guys soon. Well, I know we'll see you guys soon in a couple of days. Be on the lookout for a specific date and time. We'll post it to our socials when we have one. Stay blessed, everybody. Stay safe. Enjoy your Saturday. Don't worry too much about one damn preseason game. Some of you on X, some of you on Twitter make me sick. Anyways, fire the damn cannons. Go Bucs. Go Bucs. Touchdown Tampa Bay. We'll see you guys real soon. Goodbye. Game on Sunday, man. I know you're nervous for the Rams, but you got to be a little enthusiastic after being there.
Bro, that game atmosphere was ridiculous. The energy, the electricity. That place was rocking. Anyone was there, and a lot of the Super Bucs fans were there too. The Bucs.
Tampa Tones. We are joined by Lead Goon tonight, host of the Pat and Aaron Show of WDAE, Pat Donovan. And it sounds like Stunna is bumbling a little bit. Going to put him on mute for a second until that gets a little clear. But we're joined by Pat
It looks like
Donovan.
Stunna's hanging out with Cheech and Chong in a car with the windows up or something over there.
It does look like we got a little.
No, my